History is full of moments where a single timeline completely changes. But what happens when some of the world's most famous icons step onto a flight and simply cease to exist? Beyond the reach of modern radar lie the unsolved cases of legendary historical figures who journeyed into the horizon, leaving behind nothing but empty flight paths, baffled investigators, and questions that have gone unanswered for decades. From legendary musicians to pioneering aviators to complete mysteries, today we look into the official archive timelines of three famous cases that completely vanished in the sky. In January 1948, a highly advanced British passenger airliner named the Star Tiger was cruising smoothly over the Atlantic Ocean carrying 31 people on board. This wasn't just any routine flight packed with tourists. Among the passengers were retired military heroes, respected veterans of World War II, and prominent dignitaries who were well known in political and social circles. It was the kind of flight where if you glanced down the aisle, you'd see not just ordinary travelers, but people who had shaped history in their own ways. The aircraft was on the final leg of its journey, making its approach toward Bermuda, one of the last stops before reaching its destination. Inside the cockpit, everything appeared normal. The pilot, an experienced and highly trained professional, radioed the control tower to confirm their position. He calmly reported that the flight was exactly on schedule, with no technical issues and no cause for concern. Outside, the conditions were almost ideal. The weather was clear, visibility was good, and the sea below looked calm and peaceful, like an endless sheet of dark glass. That routine transmission would be the last message anyone would ever hear from the Star Tiger. Just minutes after that check-in, no warnings, no hints of trouble, the Star Tiger vanished from radar as if someone had flipped a switch. There was no distress call, no mayday, not even a brief hint of static that might suggest a technical failure. One moment the aircraft was there, flying normally. The next, it was simply gone. What followed was one of the most extensive search efforts of its time. Military aircraft, ships, and rescue crews from multiple countries combed the Atlantic for weeks, scanning the waves and shorelines. They expected at least something, a floating seat cushion, a piece of wing, scraps of luggage, anything that could prove where and how the plane had gone down. But the ocean gave up nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no oil slick. Not a single piece of debris or cargo ever drifted ashore. The disappearance was so complete that it felt less like a crash and more like the Star Tiger had been erased from reality. When the official investigation finally concluded, the authorities were forced into a rare and unsettling admission. They simply had no idea what had happened. No mechanical fault could be proved, no weather event could explain it, and no human error could be pinned down with confidence. The final report didn't offer closure or a neat explanation, just the stark, chilling truth. What happened to the Star Tiger remains an absolute mystery. Fun fact: the Star Tiger disappeared in the same general region later made infamous as the Bermuda Triangle. Some researchers even point to this case, along with the disappearance of another plane called the Star Ariel a year later, as key incidents that helped fuel the legend of that mysterious stretch of ocean. Whether you believe in strange anomalies or just a series of tragic coincidences, the story of the Star Tiger still leaves pilots, historians, and investigators scratching their heads to this day. Perhaps no name is more synonymous with aviation mysteries than Amelia Earhart, a woman who didn't just fly airplanes, but flew straight into legend. By the summer of 1937, she wasn't just a famous pilot, she was a global icon, pushing the limits of what humans, and especially women, were believed to be capable of. In July of that year, Earhart was on the final, most dangerous legs of her ambitious attempt to fly around the world along the equator, a route longer and more challenging than any she had tackled before. Alongside her skilled navigator, Fred Noonan, Earhart departed from Lae, New Guinea, heading toward one of the most remote and unforgiving destinations on Earth, Howland Island. On a map, Howland looks like almost nothing, just a tiny speck of land in the vastness of the Pacific, barely 2 miles long and less than a mile wide, sitting in an ocean that stretches for thousands of empty miles in every direction. Hitting that target was like trying to find a grain of sand in the middle of a football field, and in the 1930s, there was no GPS, no satellite tracking, and no modern radar to help them out. Back then, crossing the Pacific relied heavily on a fragile combination of dead reckoning, celestial navigation, and radio communication. Noonan used the stars, the sun, and careful math to estimate their position, while Earhart depended on radio signals from U.S. Coast Guard cutters and ground stations to guide them in. The plan was simple on paper: follow a precise route, pick up radio bearings as they got closer, and lock onto Howland Island. But the Pacific doesn't care about plans, and even small miscalculations could send a plane dozens or even hundreds of miles off course. As they neared what should have been their destination, the radio situation began to deteriorate. Signals grew faint and unreliable, tangled in atmospheric interference and technical issues. Earhart's final transmissions, strained and urgent, suggested they were flying along a line of position, searching desperately for the island that should have been beneath them but wasn't. She reported they were running critically low on fuel, a nightmare scenario when you're surrounded by nothing but open ocean and sky. Then, just like that, the radio went silent. What followed was unprecedented for its time: the largest maritime and aerial search operation in history. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard scoured tens of thousands of square miles of ocean, with ships, planes, and crews looking for any sign of wreckage, debris, or survivors. Imagine that: warships and reconnaissance aircraft sweeping the Pacific, hoping to find even a floating piece of metal or a life raft. Yet the sea, as it so often does, kept its secrets. In the decades since, Amelia Earhart's disappearance has fueled endless debate, investigation, and even modern expeditions. Some theories suggest she and Noonan were forced to land on a remote coral reef, possibly near Nikomaroro, then called Gardner Island, where they may have survived for a short time before succumbing to the elements. Others propose that they crashed into deep water after running out of fuel, their plane sinking quickly into the dark depths where it would be nearly impossible to find. There are even more speculative ideas involving capture, mistaken identity, and classified missions, which keep documentaries, YouTube channels, and armchair detectives busy to this day. What makes this story so gripping, even now, is that it sits at the intersection of adventure, technology, and human courage. Earhart wasn't just flying for herself, she was flying for a generation watching the world shrink and modernize. And yet, despite all our technological progress since the 1930s, satellites, sonar, deep-sea submersibles, the definitive truth about what happened to her and Fred Noonan remains just out of reach, lost to history, and hidden somewhere in the endless blue of the Pacific. Fun fact: Earhart's disappearance has inspired everything from novels and conspiracy theories to video games and TV episodes. Her story keeps resurfacing because it has all the ingredients of a timeless mystery: a daring mission, an unexplained vanishing, and a question that, even after nearly a century, we still can't answer with absolute certainty. In December 1944, Glenn Miller wasn't just popular. He was one of the biggest musical superstars on the planet. His signature big band sound, that smooth blend of swinging brass and velvety reeds, basically became the soundtrack of the World War II era. For millions of soldiers and civilians, his music wasn't just entertainment, it was emotional fuel. Songs like In the Mood and Moonlight Serenade floated over radios in barracks, mess halls, and living rooms, giving people a few precious minutes where the war felt just a little bit farther away. On December 15th, right in the thick of the conflict, Miller boarded a small military aircraft in England headed for Paris. His mission wasn't combat, it was morale. He was traveling to prepare for a special Christmas concert for the troops, a show meant to bring a taste of home to young soldiers who were cold, exhausted, and thousands of miles from their families. But the weather that day was brutal. The English Channel was smothered in thick, freezing fog, the kind that swallows up the horizon and makes the world feel very small and very dangerous. Despite the poor visibility and icy conditions, the single-engine plane still took off, disappearing into the gray haze. It never arrived. The aircraft simply vanished somewhere between England and France. No distress call, no confirmed eyewitnesses, No wreckage washing up on the coast, just silence. In the years and then decades that followed, historians, aviation experts, and even military investigators combed through records and searched the waters, but no confirmed trace of the plane or its passengers was ever found. It became one of those haunting wartime mysteries that refuses to fully close. Theories started piling up. Some believe the plane fell victim to structural icing, with ice building up on the wings in the freezing, moisture-heavy clouds until the aircraft could no longer stay aloft. Others suggest it may have accidentally flown into a zone where Allied bombers were dumping unused explosives over the channel and been destroyed in an unrecorded crossfire of friendly fire. There have even been more outlandish conspiracy theories, from secret missions gone wrong to cover-ups, but none have been definitively proven. To this day, no single explanation has been universally accepted. The official files remain technically open, and the disappearance of Glenn Miller sits in that strange space between documented history and unsolved mystery. His body was never recovered, and his final moments are unknown. What we are left with is his legacy. The music, preserved on old records and radio broadcasts, feels almost suspended in time, forever tied to that era of swing, war, and uncertainty. Fun fact, Miller was so committed to supporting the troops that he actually walked away from a massively successful civilian career to join the U.S. Army Air Forces and lead the Army Air Force Band. He could have stayed safe and famous in the States, but he chose to bring music into the heart of the war instead. In a way, that makes his disappearance feel even more poignant. These historical timelines remind us that even in an era of growing technology, the world still holds mysteries that defy explanation. Which of these archive cases do you find the most fascinating? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you appreciate these deep dive historical documentaries, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss our upcoming investigative files. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next documentary.